Hello once again. Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I'm Big Italy 42, joined here by Josh Shepardson at BChad50, and we're here talking about fades and stacks for the day. So we're going to go by pitcher, basically. We're not going to talk about every single pitcher. We don't want to bore you all day long, but we're going to talk about as many pitchers as we can, and we're going to talk about whether we're playing them, if they're tournament plays, cash plays, avoid, play, in what format, of course, and then we're going to talk about which guys are good stacks against and which ones are the contrarian stacks. So I know Josh and I both have a bunch of ones we like, and I'm excited to get this kicked off because I love these speculations on these pitchers.
Sounds good to me.
All right, we're talking FanDuel and DraftKings, of course, but we're going to go by FanDuel. It's easier. It's brighter for me to sort. So we're going to start at the top on the FanDuel list here, and $10,900 David Price. He's the most expensive option on the day. You mentioned earlier he's not a substantial favorite, which you don't like about a guy that's that pricey. You got his price on DraftKings that is pretty high as well. He's at $10,200. Not nearly the price discrepancy on DraftKings that it is on FanDuel. But, I mean, Kansas City's been hitting left-handers really well. A lot of even their lefties are hitting him well. And I'm not saying that Price isn't a void for me, but I'm not playing him in any of my cash games. I mean, he makes for a tournament option for me only.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using him today, you're chasing the ceiling that comes with David Price being David Price, basically, which means limits him to GPPs and probably makes him a better play on FanDuel where there's some soft pricing and you can get some bargain plays for your hitters. But ultimately, Kansas City does not strike out a lot against left-handed pitchers, so that really caps his strikeout ceiling. And the fact that he's not a substantial betting favorite just really dissuades me from using him. When you're a five-figure pitcher, you better be a really sizable betting favorite, or you better be like Friday, where we had Max Scherzer against Matt Harvey. Two great pitchers. You understood why they were both five-figure favorites or five-figure pitchers, but not big favorites because they're facing off against one another. David Price is not facing off against Max Scherzer or Matt Harvey. He's facing off against Edinson Volquez. So if Vegas has him as only a modest favorite, there's reason for pause, and I can't spend that price point when there's some other pitchers that I like on the day. And as Justin and I talked about before the podcast, you want a contrarian stack. Grab the Royals and hope that Price is a little messy like he was against the Yankees here recently. Number of left-handed batters in that lineup that you normally wouldn't want to grab Hosmer or Moustakas against a lefty because their track record isn't strong against lefties. Price's isn't either. But we know that we love Locane, and there are some other pieces that maybe don't fit a stack but are also good in that. Salvador Perez hammers lefty. So if you want to grab some contrarian pieces, even if you don't want to go a stack, grabbing some of these bats against Price, where most people would normally avoid Price, not saying that I'd go out of my way to target him, but you do have some options there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, if you look at the numbers, they have the second highest team WOBA against lefties. They have the second lowest strikeout rate against lefties. David Price's numbers against lefties this year, 352 WOBA allowed. So really a lot of things going against David Price tonight. And I'm not saying he's a bad play, but I'm with you there. I mean, Royals make for a nice contrarian stack, and even these lefty bats, they don't have great track records. I mean, some of them hitting well this year. And, I mean, seemingly all of them stealing bases. I mean, hitting for average, hitting the ball hard. So, I mean, I like that stack a lot to fly under the radar because, I mean, a lot of the casual gamers will come in, they'll see, oh, David Price, Detroit against the Royals, and they're like, well, I'll play him, and then you move on. But, I mean, when you look deeper, I mean, this is not a good matchup for David Price.
No, not at all.
All right, next up, Chris Archer. And we could finish up the next 26 minutes talking about Chris Archer if we'd like. But, I mean, he's your top option on the day. Yes, Baltimore's tough. Yes, they are at home. But, I mean, 30.6% strikeout rate, 5% walk rate, 59.2% ground ball rate. I mean, the guy has just been absolutely elite. 223 WOBA to lefties, 199 to righties. We could talk all day about Chris Archer. I'm not playing a single bat against him, not even in tournaments. That's the ultimate contrarian play, but I mean, I find it hard to believe that's going to pay off.
Yeah, I'm all over Archer at his price point on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Easily my top pitcher today. Easily will be my most rostered pitcher of the day. 70% rosters plus I will have Chris Archer on. Great numbers, as you alluded to. And yes, I understand Baltimore really hits right-handed pitchers hard. And no, Camden Yards isn't the greatest ballpark to be pitching in, but Archer's ground ball rate mitigates any risk of fly balls leaving the yard at Camden, and huge strikeout rate. And he's really closed the gap on shutting down left-handed batters. I mean, as a fastball slider guy, usually you'll notice a platoon split for a guy like that, but Archer does enough with the changeup and is so fine with his fastball and slider combination that he retires left-handed batters at a high rate as well. So you don't have to be as concerned with some of the lefty bats in that lineup. The guys like Chris Davis, who are probably, we might see a golden sombrero from Chris Davis today with a guy like Chris Archer on the hill. Yeah. So I love Archer today. Easily my top pick at pitcher.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, it's a pretty obvious play. All the factors go in his favor. Next up, Gio Gonzalez against the Mets. Now, this is the Mets team that has actually been, they haven't been a great offense, but they've been an efficient offense. They've been getting on base quite a bit. And against lefties, I mean, if you look over here at their walk rate, and that's what's most concerning about Gio, 10.4% walk rate on the season. Always kind of struggle with that a little bit. The Mets as a team, walking more against righties, but 7.5% against lefties is okay. But they've had actually pretty good numbers against lefties this year. 334 WOBA, just a 16.7% strikeout rate. So that in itself, Gio doesn't have the strikeout rate that he once did earlier in his career. He's not pitching deep in the games. He's got a great ground ball rate, but really struggling against lefties and righties. So, I mean, I think the Mets are a fine stack, and Gio's really not a guy that's on my radar outside of maybe a single tournament bullet.
Yeah, I mean, the swinging strike rate's way down for Gio Gonzalez this year. The control's been messy. Years past, like, you'd look at that $8,500 price tag and just slot him in. He's so good. You get the punch-outs. Like, you love that. But he's been off this year, and the control struggles worry me. The dip in the swinging strike percentage worries me. And no, David Wright to take advantage of Gio. But if he's messy, the Mets do have some hitters. Michael Kadire can certainly punish him. Curtis Granderson leading off, surprisingly, is above average against left-handed pitchers, mostly due to being able to get on base at a high rate. Not a great hitter necessarily against him, but an above-average hitter starting things off. And Juan Lagares hits left-handed pitching fairly well, noted for his glove, but an above-average hitter against lefties. So there are some potholes for Gio to navigate. I'm not going to be using him today. I can't see it. Yeah,
I'm with you there. I mean, just a lot of factors going against him, like we said, and I mean, there's plenty of legitimate options that are in really good spots. Like we've already mentioned one. We'll be getting to a couple more here, and it's a shorter slate, so there's really no reason to force guys in your lineup in bad spots here tonight, especially a pitcher, and especially on FanDuel where you only get one pitcher. I mean, you make your wrong decision on pitcher, and your FanDuel lineup gonna need a hell of a lot of help to catch up. So. Next up, Edinson Volquez, who looks like he's going to start his suspension on Monday, fortunately for him, for one of many fights that the Royals have been in this year. But, I mean, he's been a good pitcher this year. You look at his numbers, I mean, 16, 11.66, 15, 10.66 on FanDuel. One of the few pitchers has been double digits every game. But, I mean, as you know, the Tigers, against lefties, against righties, really doesn't matter. They get a righty in him tonight, and I mean, you look at their numbers so far against righties, and they haven't been the best against righties this year. But, I mean, there's just so many guys in that lineup. They're fourth in the league at 339 WOBA. Their team ISO 152 tells you they're hitting for some power, too. So, I mean, I don't like targeting guys against the Tigers, but we know when the Tigers' offense is shut down, I mean, they get completely shut down.
It's odd because they are just such a talented offense. The only pitchers that I'm taking against the Tigers are the truly elite in the league, and or the burgeoning elite. I say that because I definitely have touted Carlos Carrasco against them. Wouldn't quite call him elite yet. I think elite he will be, but yes, exactly. And Volquez just is not in that tier of pitcher, so I'm avoiding him against the Tigers today. Because he is right-handed, it definitely limits the upside of that Tigers stack. Tigers always a popular stack because they have so many notable bats in their lineup. I mean, it's easy to say, let me slot in Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, Ian Kinsler, whoever hits leadoff, whether that's Goes or Davis, and just forget it. But so many of those are right-handed batters, have more favorable numbers against lefties. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Sure, they can put some runs on the board, but I just don't. I don't think it's a very well calculated stack to use today. So really, this is an avoid all the way around. I'm not using Volquez, and I'm not stacking against Volquez. Maybe grab a piece or two from the Tigers, namely Goes if he's leading off, or Miguel Cabrera because he's Miguel Cabrera. But otherwise, like I'm not really looking at this matchup very hard to grab hitters or use either pitcher, really.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, Tigers always seem to be a popular stack in tournaments anyway, so you're really not differentiating yourself from the field by taking them. So I'm with you there. Colin McHugh next up. I love Colin McHugh. I gush about this guy all the time. I mean, one of my favorite young pitchers in the game. 23% strikeout rate, 4% walk rate. Both those very good. 54.8% ground ball rate. Has not allowed a home run yet. 249 WOBA against righties, which obviously a lot of good lefties in this lineup here for Seattle. 303 WOBA against lefties is not bad either. So a lot of things going for him, but I mean, you've got some huge bats on the other side. Obviously, Nelson Cruz. Pretty sure you've heard of him. He's having a pretty nice season here. You've got Robinson Cano's been a big disappointment. And Kyle Seager hasn't been great either. So big names, but not necessarily a whole lot of production out of that lineup right now.
Yeah, I really like Colin McHugh. He's one of my top 3 starters for the night. Love the strikeout potential, both based on his ability to strike batters out and the Mariners' proclivity for striking out. They've struck out in more than 20% of their plate appearances against right-handed pitchers this year. Minute Maid Park, not the best environment for pitching in, but McHugh's made it work. And one thing that should help him is his uptick in ground ball rate this year. Surprisingly, he's over 50% on inducing ground balls this year on balls in play, which is a real nice change for a guy who usually operates up in the strike zone. Picked up some extra strikeouts by going up the ladder last year and really relying on his secondary pitches. Like the numbers this year. Solid follow-up for McHugh, really validating what he did last year. One of my favorite pitchers tonight. You can always grab a couple hitters from that Mariners side if you're not using McHugh. There's certainly reasons for liking Kyle Seager and Robinson Cano and Nelson Cruz, as you mentioned. But not a full-blown stack for me, just not enough there to warrant that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And, I mean, Mariners looks like 22nd in the league against righties this year, 293 WOBA. So, I mean, below average there. And, you know, I mean, it's really power with them. If McHugh can keep the ball in the park, which he has all season, and keep the ball on the ground, then, I mean, it's an easy way to neutralize this offense. So I'm with you there. One of my favorites tonight as well. John Neese next up. Jonathan Neese, whatever you like to call him. Not sure what his mom calls. Probably Jonathan. So we'll go with Jonathan Neese. He's $7,700 on FanDuel. He's got a nice price on DraftKings at $7,200. Going against the Nationals team where, I mean, this one's tough because Neese has had a great ground ball rate this year, 61.7%, but he doesn't strike out a lot of guys, just 13%, which his career numbers are a little bit higher than that, though. So, I mean, you figure he'll go up. But I mean, he's about a league average strikeout pitcher. And you look at his splits, he hasn't been good against lefties or righties. Then you've got a Nationals team that's 11th in the league at 331 WOBA against lefties and a 204 team ISO, which just so happens to be the highest of any team against lefties this year. And he's already allowed 3 home runs against righties. But you don't love a lot of the righties in this lineup. That's where it gets tough.
No, it's odd. I'm certainly not going to be using Neese on my rosters. I don't like the slip and control. He has walked an ugly 8.3% of the batters he's faced this year, not making up for it with strikeouts. So not using Neese. There are some names certainly on that Nationals lineup that I like. Definitely like Jason Worth a lot. Definitely like Ryan Zimmerman. Perhaps there could be a stack to be had there if Matt Williams pulls his head out of his ass and moves Ian Desmond up to the 2-hole. I mean, if he hits a righty up there, all of a sudden, yes, Span is probably going to hit leadoff. You get your left-handed batter at the top of the order, but you grab Span. He's got on-base skills. He's not one of these overpowering hitters. Kind of slaps the ball around a little bit, so he can do fine in a lefty-lefty matchup. Grab him, grab Desmond, grab Worth and Zimmerman and Harper somewhere in there. Yes, Harper much better against righties than lefties, but at least he has the power to put the ball out of the park if Neese makes a mistake. So the stack becomes a lot more interesting depending on how Williams decides he's going to arrange that lineup. But Matt Williams, I'll take my dig right now. Probably one of the worst managers, if not the worst manager in the league right now. I don't know what he's doing with his lineups. I don't know what he's doing with the Nationals. I mean, it's a talented team. Yes, it's hurt, but my goodness, like, what a disaster that is. So look for the lineup and then get angry when you don't have stack potential because Matt Williams doesn't know how to construct the lineup card.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, my vote still goes to Brad Ausmus right now after that postseason performance last year, but at least he's still young. I'll give him a little bit of it. I won't give him much of a chance. He sucks. But either way, next up on the board, Taijuan Walker, $7,700 on FanDuel, $7,100 on DraftKings, going up against a Houston team that's striking out nearly 25% of the time against right-handed pitching. So I had the number here, 24.3% of the time. They are walking 9.4%, and they do have a team ISO of 182. A little bit above league average at 325 WOBA. So yes, they have some power. Yes, they have some patience, but they're striking out a lot. That's what concerns you, though, once again here with Walker, because earning his name, he walks too many guys, over 11% so far, but he's got a nice strikeout rate at 20%. He faced this same team, went 5 1/3, 8 Ks, gave up a bunch of runs, though. But with the 8 Ks, he still paid off his tag. So that's where, once again, it gets pretty tough because you've got Taijuan Walker. A lot of things going for him, but also a lot of things going against him. So he makes for a single bullet GPP guy for me. And I will get an Astro stack because they've been hitting the ball well, and they should be able to get on base.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario here. As you point out, the upside is fairly high. He's facing a very righty-heavy Astros lineup that strikes out a lot. So you do want to get at least a share of him in GPPs, perhaps, because he can miss bats. But they're also a patient bunch, and they have a lot of power. So if Walker ends up issuing a few free passes, guys like Evan Gattis and George Springer and Chris Carter can make him pay for that missed control with one swing of the bat. And that always makes for an interesting stacking group as well because they are so right-handed heavy and they are facing a right-handed pitcher. Maybe a stack that flies a little bit under the radar. But yeah, I'm with you. I see both sides to using Walker and stacking against him. It's not a matchup that I have to stack against, and he's not a pitcher that I'll use in cash games, certainly. But I will fire a bullet with him in a GPP, or at least consider it. And ditto on running out a stack of Astros, depending on how the lineup shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing when, especially when you're deciding on which pitchers to use for a slate. If you see validity in using a stack against them, that right there tells you don't want to have too much exposure to that pitcher. So I won't be. I'm going to go ahead and skip Miguel Gonzalez unless you have a lot to say about him. He's an average pitcher against an average lineup. Not much to see here.
No, not a lot to attack and not a lot to like about using him. So he's basically that guy that, yeah, he's there, but not much to say.
Yeah, and he's more expensive than Chris Archer on DraftKings, which I don't think that the word baffling does it justice because that's just ridiculous to me.
Agreed.
All right, next up, Nick Martinez, Mr. Ace. Aceless Martinez over here. I mean, he's been so good that he hasn't even been good. I mean, if that makes any sense. Got a really low ERA, but not striking anyone out. His walk rate's not great either. He's a guy who was an easy target last year. We'd love to pick on him. And, I mean, you got a lot of good bats on this Oakland side that can exploit bad righties, since I can't talk now. Stephen Vogt, great price tag across the industry still. No one seems to play him. No one talks about him. He's been the best hitting catcher in the league, and it hasn't even been close. You got guys like Ike Davis. It's tough to stack this team. We always talk about it. Billy Butler and Ike Davis, both first base eligible on both big sites. So, I mean, I see the validity in the stack. No way in hell I'm playing Nick Martinez today. I don't care what his ERA is today. I don't care what his numbers are tomorrow. I don't care what they are in 6 days. I will never, ever play Nick Martinez in a game, ever.
I will pick against Nick Martinez. The fact that that a stack is next to impossible with the A's is a pain in the behind. I mean, the fact that they clump Davis and Butler 4-5 in the order typically hurts. But one interesting thing that can come from this is you and I talked before the podcast. I kind of like the middle of that A's order. Maybe do something like a Davis, Brett Lawrie, Josh Reddick grab against Nick Martinez. Martinez struggles a lot with left-handed batters. Not all of those batters that I listed are left-handed, Brett Lawrie being the right-handed batter in the mix. But I'm grabbing some A's tonight, and I'm grabbing them from all over the order, hooking some guys together, maybe grabbing Simeon, Vogt, Butler mini stack, maybe grabbing Davis, Reddick, Lawrie, depending on how the order shakes out. but you want some guys against Martinez. Doesn't miss bats at all, and that ERA is completely luck fueled. So I'm picking on Martinez, not using Martinez, and that's pretty much what I've got to say about that matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna let you take the floor on this next one. It's a guy that I like, but I know that you have him in your upper echelon of pitchers tonight, considering matchup, ballpark, everything. So tell me about Brandon Morrow here.
He's my number 2 ranked pitcher tonight behind Chris Archer. Love the price point on FanDuel. $6,900 is an absolute steal. Priced affordably at $6,900 on DraftKings as well. He'll be my favorite SP2 on DraftKings. I can slot him into most of my rosters now. Still going to use him on probably, I'll say, upwards of 25% of my rosters on FanDuel because I like the price point. Love the ballpark. Betting total of just 3 for the Rockies today. Big betting favorite in Morrow. Velocity's there. Ground ball rate's been good. Has pounded the strike zone, and even though his strikeout rate's below the league average and under 20%, his swinging strike rate, according to FanGraphs, is above the league average and over 10% so far this year. So there will be some strikeouts to come with Morrow. He's healthy, and more than anything, I love the lineup that's backing him. Should get some run support and should get the W. And he's a guy that's pitched 7 innings or more, 7 innings in 3 of 4 starts and 6 in the other start. So, I mean, he's piling up innings. He's going deep into games. He does everything you want from a guy that is your single pitcher if you're on FanDuel, or your SP2 if you're looking for value on DraftKings. So I'm all over Morrow tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you for all of those same reasons that you mentioned. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next guy, Jason Marquis. Yes, he's the guy we like to target. I mean, if you look at his strikeout rate this year, it's been pretty damn good, but not buying into it. More than a strikeout per inning so far, but he's also been getting hit pretty hard. He's been fortunate last 2 starts against Milwaukee. He was really bad in the first start. Second one, not so bad. He went 8 innings, got the win. But a lot of his fantasy point numbers are a little bit inflated by these strikeout numbers and by the fact that he's gotten the win in his last 2 starts against that awful Milwaukee lineup right now. Now facing an Atlanta team that's striking out the least in the league over the last week. So, team that's putting the ball in play. And Jason Marquis, as you noted earlier, I mean, he's been really bad against lefties throughout his career. I mean, all 20 years of it or however long it's been by now. And, I mean, I don't really care what his price tag is. I'm targeting him with a lot of these Atlanta lefties. I don't know about a full stack necessarily because he hasn't been awful. But, I mean, Przinsky, Freeman, all these guys. Anderson Simmons is a righty, but he's a cheap punt at shortstop that I know we both like. So, what's your take here? Full stack, mini stack?
I am probably going to get a 1 through 4 of the Braves in against him. They have 3 left-handed batters to exploit his ugliness against left-handed batters. So grabbing Markakis, our punt play, and Andrelton Simmons is short, and then Markakis and Przinsky, as long as Przinsky's in the lineup today, that's a nice 1 through 4 that's affordable. And I really think that they can all feed off of each other. Because Marquis is so bad against left-handed batters, should be some ducks on the pond for one another. There'd be some runs scored there. So I guess I'd go through 1 through 4 is fine. Probably not going to dip any lower in the Braves lineup. They do have some ugly options elsewhere. So I'm not going a full-blown 1 through 6 on DK where you can grab that many bats. But 1 through 4 definitely going to get some usage from me.
Yeah, with you there. On the opposite side of this one, another exploitable pitcher, Eric Stultz. Fortunately for opposing hitters, he's moved away from Petco Park now, where it kind of masked his awfulness against lefties and righties. I mean, he's a guy. He hasn't been terrible so far this season, but he's a guy that can certainly be beat. He's got a 353 WOBA allowed to righties this year. Doesn't strike anyone out. Doesn't do a great job of keeping the ball on the ground. That right there tells you all the righties in play, the switch hitters. I mean, you got Billy Hamilton. I mean, even Joey Votto, great against lefties as well. He's in play. Todd Frazier's in play. If you get Brandon Phillips in a great lineup spot, he's hit 4th a couple times. You could see him, but I assume Frazier's going to be in the 4 hole, and Phillips just not hitting the ball particularly well. But, I mean, really all these Reds, righties, and Joey Votto in play for me here.
Yeah, and this is a great situation for a full-blown stack, I think. You've got Hamilton leading off, gives you that high ceiling that you look for in your stacks. It doesn't come with the home run power, but it comes with the stolen base upside. He's going to be backed by Zach Cozart, most likely. Cheap play at shortstop, can hit lefties well. You got Joey Votto, who we noted is better against righties, but absolutely rakes against lefties as well. Todd Frazier, Brandon Phillips, and even Jay Bruce, who you don't usually want in a lefty-lefty matchup. But if you're going full-blown stack, you need that power. You need to go, the distance if you're on DraftKings and get your 6 hitters. Increase the volatility, but increase the upside. And you can certainly do that. So I'm all over the Reds today, and I think a full-blown stack is definitely in order.
Yeah, I'm a big fan there as well. So it looks like both sides of this one certainly in play. Drew Pomeranz is an interesting guy. Comes in next. He's got a really cheap price tag, $6,100 on FanDuel. He's at $5,400 on DraftKings. Going up against a Texas team that, hasn't really been very good at all in general. You look at their numbers against left-handed batters, or left-handed pitchers, I should say. 323 WOBA is not bad. A little bit above league average. 163 ISO is fine. Striking out over 20% of the time. Pomeranz has almost a 23% strikeout rate. But at the same time, he's been really bad against righties. So Adrian Beltre's in play. At the same time, though, I don't like enough of these Texas right-handed bats that I'd be comfortable with a stack here. I'm not saying I'm necessarily playing Pomeranz. He makes for a good upside guy in tournaments. But there's just not a lot of good right-handed bats there in that Texas lineup.
No, and that's part of the reason I like Casimir so much last night. I don't like Pomeranz to that same extent, but as you said, GPP flyer for sure. Really good strikeout rate, good walk rate. Has had some problems stranding base runners with just his 57% left on base percentage. Not doing as good of a job of keeping the ball on the ground this year, but Pomeranz has some GPP appeal. His susceptibility to righties does scare me a little bit, but your biggest bats outside of Adrian Beltre are mostly left-handed in that Rangers lineup, so you can't stack against Pomeranz. There just aren't enough righties to make it worth it. And for Pomeranz, there's enough concerns that even at that cheap price tag, he's not much more than a flyer on a team or two in GPPs.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a sexy pick due to his strikeout rate being cheap, but not a route that I'm willing to take. I mean, like we've said a million times, there's 3 guys up top that we really like, and I mean, I'm going to be almost exclusively on those 3 guys.
Yep, same here.
All right, Jorge De La Rosa is the guy that we like a lot, not because we want to play him as our pitcher, but because we love to target these San Diego bats against the lefty. Derek Norris, Justin Upton, Matt Kemp, even Solarte if he's got a nice lineup spot. I mean, a lot of these guys in play. Lineup construction is going to be interesting there today. We talked about it earlier, but for me, it doesn't really matter. Get these guys however you want. I'm trying to get as many of them as I can, even in my cash games. Justin Upton and Derek Norris together, just $6,500 on FanDuel. Makes for a great 1-2 punch there in your cash games if you want to go that route. But really, all these San Diego bats in play. And I think you and I are of the same thing. And this is going to be a lower-owned stack due to the fact they're at Petco Park. But I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, and I mean, people are going to see the low batting total 7, and I understand being scared off. We don't usually pick against Vegas, so to speak, but Morrow is a sizable batting favorite, so the Padres are expected to do the bulk of the scoring, and these guys hammer lefties. Justin Upton, Matt Kemp, Derek Norris, Will Myers, even their less talented bats or lower-owned guys like Yangervis Solarte, who could be in the lineup. If he's not in the lineup, you're looking at Jed Jerko and Will Middlebrooks, who hit left-handed pitching really well. So this is my favorite stack of the day. Even at Petco Park, I mean, I love the price points, and I love what these guys do against left-handed pitching. And De La Rosa struggles badly with right-handed batters. So this looks like a really nice matchup to grab pieces from and full-blown stack to me.
Yeah, only thing that may hurt our ownership percentage with them tonight is the fact that they did explode last night at a really low ownership percentage, so maybe some more people will be on them, but hopefully still people scared away. And I don't think they'll be highly enough owned that I'm going to be off them in tournaments. I mean, I'm still rolling them, and I'm rolling them in cash games as well.
Same here.
All right, 2 more pitchers on the board here. The Hell Dog, Jeremy Hellickson. He just gets the unfortunate assignment tonight of facing the Los Angeles Dodgers anywhere in the entire world. So for me, Dodgers are the best offense. Not for me. I mean, this is actually a fact. They're the best lineup in the league against righties. It's not particularly close. 376 WOBA, 246 team ISO. It's just astronomical. I mean, if more than a couple hitters in your entire lineup have an ISO like that, you're thrilled. 10.7% walk rate is elite. Also the highest on the board. I mean, there's no way, and if my life depended on it, that I would play Jeremy Hellickson in this matchup. I expect him to get crushed tonight.
I do too, and this is probably going to be the most popular stack of the night, and it's probably going to be by a wide margin. And understandably, I want Dodgers tonight. Of course, they've been juggling their lineup a little bit. Jock Peterson moved up to leadoff. They keep jostling guys around a little bit. Got to see where some of these guys are hitting in the order to know exactly what you want to do with the stack. But stacking Dodgers is a fine play. Lefties hit Hellickson, and Hellickson has a weird reverse platoon split. So even grabbing guys like Howie Kendrick, who are right-handed against him, makes for a great get. So I'm going to be stacking some Dodgers as well tonight and picking on Hellickson.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And last pitcher on the board, Scott Baker. He's the guy who, he came up years ago. He was a fairly highly touted prospect at the time. Had a couple, I think with the Twins, he had that one really good season. And, he's kind of, he hasn't kind of fallen off. He's really fallen off since then. And not a good matchup for him tonight against this Arizona offense. Paul Goldschmidt, you mentioned your favorite play at first base. I'm with you there. He's got massive upside in this matchup. Baker's a guy who's got talent, but he just does not keep the ball on the ground, and that is a recipe for disaster against these bats of Arizona.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt is my favorite for hitting a home run today. He's going to get the Dong of the Day call, and Baker can't keep the ball on the ground. And while Dodger Stadium suppresses runs, it does not suppress home runs. It actually amplifies them. So I don't necessarily think that I'm going to go a full-blown stack with the Diamondbacks at all, but I am going to grab pieces from that roster because that's where you want to grab your one-offs. That's where you want to grab your Goldschmidts and your Tomas and your Peraltas, because with that fly ball rate the way that it is, the likelihood of a home run being given up by Scott Baker is fairly high. So if you can grab the right guy from that lineup that hits the home run, throw them in with your stack that hits, all of a sudden you're shooting past everyone else using that stack. So that's where I'm going to get my one-offs from. That's where I'm going to be getting some of my plays to stick in with the stacks is from that Diamondbacks roster. So pick on Baker's fly ball tendencies. He had a fine first start for the Dodgers, but this is Scott Baker we're talking about. He is a little long on the tooth, not much more than really probably a swing man that's been forced into starting pitching duties. So that's my take on him tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you in all those points, and that is going to wrap things up for us. Thank you for hanging out with us. Follow us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Check out all of our content for tonight's action at dailyfantasycafe.com, and check us out again on Monday.